I don't see how anyone could look at my life before my wife and say that now.
For me, is the possibility that it could be the person I will fall in love with.
How am I singing and mocking Raven? I'm doing my frickin' job!
Noah Brown wasn't just another reality star playing rugged in front of cameras. He was the oddball genius, the sensitive craftsman, the soft-spoken inventor with a poet's heart hidden beneath layers of Alaskan grit. Long before his marriage unraveled in front of millions, before fans questioned his mental state or his family's loyalty, Noah was quietly building a world of his own in the wilderness, not with money but with wire, gears and raw emotion. He wasn't just surviving off the grid. He was dreaming in the shadows, crafting strange contraptions and writing love letters by hand, believing every word poured onto a page carried a piece of his soul. While his siblings hunted and built shelters, Noah was the one soldering circuits, building a desk by hand just so he could write in peace. He once said he'd only fall in love through written words, and to some it sounded like the fantasy of a recluse. But for Noah it was everything. He was dubbed Mr. Fix-It, the brainy, quiet one with a love for science and Shakespeare, a man whose soul lived somewhere between a generator and a journal. And yet even with all that intellect and heart, nothing could prepare him or his fans for the emotional unraveling that would come later. Because what Noah couldn't fix was the one thing he tried hardest to protect, his marriage. And now, years after Alaskan Bush People faded from the airwaves, fans are asking the question no one saw coming: what really broke Noah Brown? From the moment Alaskan Bush People premiered, it was clear that Noah Brown wasn't cut from the same cloth as his brothers. While the rest of the Brown clan thrived in physical labor, wilderness grit and bushborn bravado, Noah emerged as the family's resident mind, the technician, the builder, the curious soul with an affinity for circuits, pressure systems and philosophical musing. He wasn't just the guy who fixed broken flashlights or tinkered with batteries. He was the one rigging custom-made gadgets from scrap metal and intuition, designing tools out of instinct and survival need. Viewers watched as he rigged makeshift machinery in the middle of nowhere, repaired failing generators with spare parts, and crafted tools that bordered on mad science, all while remaining calm, methodical, and oddly poetic. He earned the nickname Mr. Fix-It, not just because he could keep the lights on, but because he gave the impression he could mend anything, except maybe his own emotional wounds. He once built a hand-carved writing desk just to have a space to retreat and write his thoughts, a rare moment of vulnerability broadcast between scenes of hunting and chopping wood. He wasn't just fixing machines, he was trying to fix the distance between his inner world and the chaos around him. In a family defined by brute survival, Noah was the anomaly, a man who saw the forest not only for its trees, but for the untold stories buried beneath them. His brain was a compass, his heart an open circuit, and both were always quietly humming. Long before wedding vows and fatherhood, Noah Brown made it clear that for him, love wasn't casual, it was sacred. In a world where his brothers hunted deer and built cabins, Noah courted women the way a 19th century poet might, through handwritten letters and whispered dreams. He believed, quite earnestly, that a true relationship must begin with ink on paper, because in his words, when you write a letter, you put a little bit of your soul into it. And that sentiment wasn't just for show. In one of the show's most memorable episodes, Noah crafted a heartfelt letter to a woman named Christy, poured his emotions onto the page, and followed it up with a date over milkshakes in Hoona. The milkshakes were too thick, the conversation was awkward, and the chemistry didn't exactly crackle, but Noah's sincerity was undeniable. Determined to show Christy how serious he was, he took her to meet his mother, Amy, right there on the docks. To him, that wasn't rushing things, it was courting, a sacred ritual that should end in marriage, but that early hope would crash quickly. After a heart-to-heart with his father, Noah backed away from the budding relationship, lamenting that soulmates weren't supposed to hurt each other. The heartbreak exposed something deeper, a man desperate for connection, but often misunderstood for his eccentricities. He once joked that the only heart he'd ever have was the one in a jar on his shelf, a detail so strange that even his father, Billy, had to pause and call it out. "Okay, that's just creepy," he said, and for once fans agreed. But in Noah's world, oddity wasn't a flaw, it was just how he loved. When Noah Brown met Rain Alicia, later known as Rain, it felt for a brief moment like the odd genius had finally found his match. Their love story didn't unfold in tabloids or red carpets, but in remote corners of Alaska where the winds howled and the trees whispered secrets older than any headline. They met in 2016, and what began as a quiet friendship quickly blossomed into something deeper. Unlike the failed date with Christy, this connection felt real, grounded, and mutual. Letters were exchanged, visits were planned, and in true Noah fashion, he proposed in Juneau, far from the public eye. In 2018, the couple sealed their bond with a wedding in Idaho, a ceremony that seemed to promise new beginnings not just for them, but for a Brown family constantly teetering between survivalism and stardom. Yet beneath the romantic glow, tensions were simmering. Amy Brown, the family matriarch, reportedly had reservations, while Noah's sister Bird found herself at odds with Rain from the beginning. The situation was made more complicated when Raven changed her name to Rain, a name already held by Noah's youngest sister. What seemed like a symbolic gesture of unity sparked family discord, with Bird viewing it as a territorial intrusion. And while other Brown brothers introduced their partners without drama, Noah's choice was met with icy reception. Still, Noah stood firm, defending his wife and asserting her place in the family, even making Bird the godmother of their first son in a gesture of peace. Through it all, Noah remained loyal, steadfast, and emotionally raw. This wasn't just a marriage, it was a battle for acceptance, and Noah was willing to fight, even if it meant going against his own blood. The illusion of wilderness simplicity shattered in 2020, when disaster struck the Brown family in a way no camera crew could script. A devastating wildfire ripped through Palmer Mountain, incinerating Noah Brown and Rain Alicia's home, leaving behind scorched earth and heavy hearts. For a family who prided themselves on self-reliance, the loss was more than material. It was emotional, symbolic, and destabilizing. Fans quickly noticed Noah was no longer filming in Browntown, the off-grid family compound. Speculation swirled. Was there trouble in the marriage? Were family tensions boiling over? In a rare and uncharacteristically candid Instagram post, Noah addressed the rumors head-on, confirming that he and Rain had lost everything in the blaze. "We are in a rental house until we can rebuild what we lost," he wrote. "We didn't leave because of family issues or because Rain is pregnant. We left because our home burned down." It was a plea for understanding, not for pity, not for money, just emotional support. But the public speculation didn't stop. In moving to the city, Noah inadvertently triggered waves of gossip that magnified the strain already on their relationship. For a man used to the quiet solitude of invention and introspection, the pressure of rebuilding while being scrutinized by the public and distanced from the wilderness became a quiet storm. Still, he maintained that Browntown and North Star Ranch would always be their spiritual home. But in reality, the move marked a turning point, away from the myth of the untamed wild and into the messy, complicated world of adulthood, fatherhood, and fractured family ties. Behind the scenes of Alaskan Bush People, the Brown family's wilderness image was beginning to unravel, not because of nature, but because of a courtroom. In 2022, revelations surfaced that rocked the foundation of the show, a $500,000 lawsuit connected to the late patriarch Billy Brown, accusing him of breaching a contract with his longtime business partner Robert Mahan. The suit alleged that Billy had promised a 10% cut of profits from Alaska Wilderness Family Productions, including revenue from books, shows, and documentaries, but those payments never came, according to the claim. As legal documents emerged, they painted a troubling picture. Allegations of fraud, falsified residency records to secure government benefits, and evidence that the family hadn't truly been living in Alaska full-time as the show portrayed. Billy, already reeling from years of health issues, denied the accusations publicly, dismissing online critics as Bob's in the basement. But the damage was done. Discovery Channel quietly ended the show, and the Brown legacy took a major blow. Then, in February 2021, tragedy struck. Billy Brown, the man who had led his family into the woods and into television history, suffered a fatal seizure at the family's North Star Ranch in Washington. He was 68 years old. The loss was seismic. Bear Brown broke the news on social media, writing, "He lived his life on his terms, and he will be dearly missed." What fans didn't know was that Billy had been battling heart and lung problems for years, and the health collapse wasn't entirely unexpected. Still, it left a power vacuum and a spiritual void, one the family struggled to fill. For Noah, who had always sought his father's guidance and validation, the loss was more than personal. It marked the crumbling of the structure he had built his adult life around. And without Billy, the family's grip on unity began to slip. The death of Billy Brown didn't just fracture the emotional core of the Brown family. It quietly widened the cracks already forming between its members. And at the center of much of that tension stood Noah Brown, caught between the woman he loved and the family that struggled to accept her. While public tributes to Billy flooded in and the family appeared united on the surface, behind the scenes, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. Noah's wife, Rain Alicia, had long endured whispers and cold shoulders from some members of the Brown clan, particularly from Bird Brown. The conflict escalated from passive tension to legal paperwork in a surprising twist. Rain Alicia filed for a protection order against Noah's sister, accusing her of harassment. Though the request was ultimately denied, the mere act of filing underscored just how bitter the feud had become. The once tightly knit group of wilderness survivors now looked increasingly like a fractured alliance struggling to find common ground. Adding fuel to the fire was the perception that Noah and Rain were treated differently compared to the partners of other Brown brothers. Bear Brown's relationship with Raven, despite its drama and off-again on-again nature, was embraced by the family without public scandal. Gabe Brown's marriage to Raquel went similarly undisturbed. Yet for Noah, his marriage felt like a battleground, with every gesture scrutinized and every choice questioned. Even as he tried to heal the rift, making Bird the godmother of his son Elijah, publicly affirming Rain's place in the family, the fractures only deepened. For fans watching from the outside, the question loomed: why was Noah's loyalty to his wife met with resistance, while others received silent approval? The answer was never clearly spoken, but the damage it caused left lasting scars on the Brown family dynamic. While the public focused on lawsuits and family feuds, a quieter and far more personal struggle was unfolding behind the scenes, a battle against the body and mind that would take a toll on multiple members of the Brown family. For Noah Brown, the toll came in the form of post-concussive syndrome, a lingering condition triggered by repeated head injuries sustained during his off-the-grid lifestyle. The effects weren't visible at first, but over time, symptoms like memory lapses, confusion, and mental fog began to creep in. In a rare moment of honesty, Noah admitted the condition had even changed his sense of taste, a bizarre side effect that he joked about publicly, but one that hinted at a deeper concern about his long-term well-being. He wasn't alone. His sister, Amora Snowbird Brown, endured a health scare of her own when doctors discovered 2 tumors that required surgery, including a partial hysterectomy, a life-altering procedure at just 27 years old. Though she was told the tumors weren't cancerous, the threat loomed, with doctors warning of a high likelihood of recurrence. Snowbird, ever private, broke her silence in 2024, updating fans via Instagram with cautious optimism as she underwent more tests and scans. Meanwhile, the matriarch Amy Brown continued her own long war against illness, battling stage 3 lung cancer, a diagnosis that once came with only a 3% chance of survival. Though she entered remission, her health remains fragile, a shadow that never fully lifts. For a family known for their physical toughness and survivalist image, these medical challenges revealed a different kind of resilience, one defined not by hunting or building, but by endurance, uncertainty, and the quiet strength to keep moving forward despite it all. In a world where reality stars often script their every move, Noah Brown's decision to announce his separation on TikTok came as both a shock and a sobering dose of transparency. On January 28, 2025, fans of Alaskan Bush People were greeted not by a glossy press release or a televised confession, but by a quiet video of Noah and Rain Alicia sitting side by side, breaking the news themselves. "We just wanted you to hear this from us," Noah began, his voice steady but tired. Rain nodded in agreement, adding that after 6 years of marriage, they were taking a break and no longer living together. Noah had moved into the guest cabin, and while he still saw his sons Elijah and Adam on weekends, the shift in their family dynamic was unmistakable. What stood out wasn't just the content of the announcement, it was the way it was delivered, calm, respectful, and heartbreakingly human. Rain explained that the distance was helping her find herself again, and that Noah was doing better with space and structure. "I already feel a lot better because I don't have to ask him to do anything," she said plainly. Noah, still trying to keep fans in the loop, followed up with another TikTok just days later, revealing that Rain no longer approved of their kids appearing on his TikTok content, though she was fine with Instagram and Facebook. The compromise hinted at underlying control issues, or perhaps just a desperate attempt at boundaries during an emotional divide. There was no shouting, no scandal, just 2 people unraveling in real time, doing their best to protect their children while holding back the tidal wave of public curiosity. For a couple that had once been held up as the emotional heart of the Brown family, the silence between them in those videos spoke volumes. Now that the dust has settled, and Noah Brown lives alone in a guest cabin, while Rain Alicia searches for peace in a house that once held dreams of forever, fans are left with one haunting question: what really drove the couple apart? Was it the harshness of wilderness life, the relentless pressures of public scrutiny, or something far more personal, the unspoken weight of family rejection? From the beginning, Noah was different. A man who built machines from junk, wrote letters to woo women, and defended his wife in the face of mounting friction from those closest to him. He sacrificed stability to protect Rain Alicia's place in a family that never fully embraced her, even as other brothers' partners were welcomed with open arms. And yet, in doing so, did Noah exhaust the very strength that held his relationship together? Rain's words linger. I already feel a lot better because I don't have to ask him to do anything. It was a statement that pointed not to a sudden betrayal, but to a slow unraveling of emotional burnout, of needs unmet, of two people pulling in opposite directions while trying to protect the illusion of unity. For Noah, the loyalty he once gave to his father now shifted entirely to his wife and children, but even that devotion had its limits. The same traits that made Noah magnetic to viewers, his sensitivity, his loyalty, his complexity, may have ultimately made it impossible for him to thrive in the rigid world that formed around him. And perhaps that's the tragic beauty of Noah Brown's journey. He was never meant to be molded by the wild or tamed by tradition. He was a man searching for peace in places that offered none, and for love in a family that struggled to understand how deeply he could feel it. As the Brown family recedes from the public eye, and the once celebrated Alaskan Bush People fades into television history, Noah Brown's story remains curiously unfinished. A man neither fully in the wild nor at peace in the world beyond it. Now living in quiet separation from the woman he once defended against all odds, Noah is no longer the quirky side character or the show's misunderstood genius. He's a father navigating heartbreak, a survivor stripped of his myth. He still posts on social media, still shares glimpses of his sons, but there's a subtle restraint now, as if the flame that once burned so fiercely for connection has dimmed into something quieter, more guarded. His future remains uncertain. Will he rebuild in the wilderness again? Will he continue inventing, writing, seeking love in silence? Or will this new chapter be one of complete reinvention? One thing remains clear. Noah Brown was never meant to fit neatly into any mold, not the survivalist persona crafted for reality TV, nor the romantic idealist desperate for belonging. He walked a lonely line between intellect and instinct, vulnerability and strength, and now that the cameras have stopped rolling, he faces the one journey that can't be edited for drama, the slow, uncertain task of rediscovering who he is without the show, the marriage or the expectations. Perhaps that's what fans are truly watching now, not the rise or fall of a reality star, but the evolution of a man who never stopped trying to fix what was broken, even when the thing that needed the most mending was himself. This video is based on publicly available information, media coverage, and fan discussions surrounding Noah Brown and the Brown family. While we strive for accuracy, some details may include speculation, opinions, or unverified reports. All allegations, legal matters, and personal events are presented for informational and entertainment purposes only. We respect the privacy of the individuals involved and encourage viewers to approach sensitive topics with empathy and understanding.